Most of you have probably heard of a lever arm belt squat, but have you heard of a lever arm hack squat? Well, now you have, and that's what we're going to talk about today on GymCrafter. Hey everybody, I'm Tim, the head gym nerd here at GymCrafter.com, the website that I built to help ordinary folks like you and I build home and garage gyms that we absolutely love. And today I'm coming at you with something unusual, which is always fun. It's not often that I get to review something that you don't see every day, and that is certainly the case with the RitFit lever arm hack squat. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, lever arm belt squats have become pretty popular. The nice thing about those is not everybody has a ton of room for freestanding machines in their garage. I'm standing in front of the RitFit combination leg press hack squat. And while it is compact, and you'll see a review coming up, like I said, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss this type of a video when I bring it out, but it still takes up quite a bit of room. So rack attached squat attachments have become kind of popular lately. And this is actually the first rack attached hack squat that I've seen. So let's take a close look at how it works, what it attaches to, what I like, what I don't, and that'll hopefully help you guys decide if it's something that you would like to add to your gym. Now, we're gonna start with what type of a rack this particular unit attaches to. Now, this runs $199, so another benefit aside from space savings that it is considerably less expensive than a freestanding hack squat machine. I will tell you that as far as space savings goes, it does save space in the fact that you don't need a footprint of a freestanding machine, but sticking off the side of my rack here, it does take up quite a bit of space. There's literally 6 feet from the side post to the wall here, and I can just barely get into this thing. Now, once I'm in, it's fine, but in order to leave enough room for me to enter this, it does take up quite a bit of room. So you're going to want to make sure that whatever rack you put it on, that you have some room for this to work. The other thing is that this attaches to 2x2 racks with 1-inch hole spacing, and this is the RitFit M1 combination rack, and it has 4-inch hole spacing. So even though the RitFit site says it fits on 2x2 racks, you're going to want to make sure that you have the right hole size and hole spacing to install this. Now, we're going to start with how to actually put it on and kind of go over some of the things that I like and some of the things that I don't like so that you can see exactly how this thing works and whether or not it's going to be right for your gym. Taking a look at how this attaches to your rack, the first thing I'm going to say is that it's meant to go on and off easily, but what things are meant to do isn't always what they actually do. And one of the things that I just don't necessarily like about this is on this particular rack, this M1, it only accommodates this on the front. So it gets in the way of the J-cups and it gets in the way of the trolleys for the cable system, even when it's collapsed. And I'll show you what I mean by collapsed here in a second. So in order to use it and your rack, you are going to be taking it on and off the rack. Now, if I was able to attach this to the rear post of the rack where it was out of the way, that would be a different story, maybe. It is kind of large on the bottom and I do see it still getting in the way. So be prepared if you get this, that it's something that you're going to end up kind of putting on and taking off. It's fairly heavy, which is good because you want something like this to be heavy duty, but it's bad because getting it on and off of your rack is kind of a pain. The way that that works is there are 2 little posts right here with little cotter pins that stick through the back and secure these on. And you're basically going to lift this up, line it up with 2 of the holes on the rack, slide these in, and then slide the cotter pins through the back so that it doesn't pop out. I'm going to do that live here on video. I don't know how this is going to go. Sometimes it goes quick and sometimes it doesn't, but I want you guys to see exactly what it's like to install this so that you know what you're getting into if you get one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lift this up and line up the holes. The bracket itself is relatively tight to the rack, so getting these holes aligned sometimes is a little tricky. If you can get it, the first one is usually pretty easy. It's that back one that's tough. Once you have the top pin in, at least the pin will hold it up, and the bottom hole on the bracket is an oval shape, so it's a little bit easier to line up. Now you've got it here. We can put that through, come back behind, put the cotter pins in, and this is mounted to the rack. So with the unit mounted to the rack, it actually will store or collapse fully down, so it doesn't have to stick out like in the original part of the video. You can leave it down. Now, like I said, this is in the way of everything I would want to do on this rack. So it gets it out of the way for me to walk by the rack, but it doesn't necessarily get it out of the way to use the rack. There's another safety pin right here. And what this does is this holds the squat arm or the lever arm in the correct position so that you can get a good start and get under it without getting hurt. And basically you pull this out, you're gonna lift the lever arm up, install that at the right height so that you can get in and get underneath the lever arm and start to squat. So there you have the setup. I'm not a huge fan. Like I said, for me, I'm a little bit lazy. So this is something that as I've had this in here and I've been testing it, I don't necessarily look forward to installing it and uninstalling it. As you saw, it doesn't take more than a minute or two, but it's kind of a pain. So just to be honest with you, if you're not the type of person who's gonna use something, if it's got a little bit of effort to set it up, you might want to skip this. If you're the type of person, I know there's lots of you out there who go, hey Tim, I'm here to work out anyway. Well, there's no big deal to put something on the rack, not a big deal. Then this is going to be good for you as far as setup goes. Now, the way that it works is, and I'll load some weights on it in a second because I definitely want to show you something about how much weight you can put on here. But you're basically going to step underneath here. There's some nice handles right here, which is cool. And then you're going to stand up. You're going to pull this pin out, and then you can put the pin in the bottom hole. It won't get in the way of the arm anymore. And then that allows you to go ahead and perform your hack squats. On this, there are some pads here on the shoulder. So there's a pad that goes across and then there's a pad that goes down. It does a nice job of keeping you in position for the hack squat. But as you hit the bottom here, these back pads do press into your shoulders a little bit. So if you've got some good squat depth, then that might hit there. Now, as I just hit the bottom portion with this pin. So if you've got really good squat depth, then you may wanna just keep this out altogether and hang on to it. I'm not a big fan of hanging on to it because then you have to hang on to it in this, but it's gotta go somewhere, right? So I leave it there. You get to the bottom, and again, it's not the most comfortable, but it does work okay. For a couple $100, it's not bad, and it does effectively perform a hack squat. Before I load the plates on, I'm just gonna show you the issue that I find. If you're gonna use this, if you notice this lever hangs really far off the side, the weight plates mount all the way on the end. Now the benefit of this is that it puts the weight right over your shoulder. So unlike a lot of hack squat machines where the amount of weight on the machine isn't necessarily what you're lifting, or even lever arm belt squats, the amount of weight that's on that lever arm isn't the amount that you're lifting. With this, because it positions the weight directly over your shoulders, you actually are lifting the amount that you put on here. The problem is being a lever and being way far out like this, if your rack like this M1 doesn't have a ton of weight to it, I can tilt that up. So as I load plates on here, what I've noticed is the more weight I put on here, the more weight I have to make sure is on the weight posts on the far side of the back of the rack to make sure that the whole rack doesn't tip. Now this M1, you can bolt this to the ground, and that might not be a bad idea, but I do want to caution you that if you think you're going to do heavy hack squats on this, you're going to want to put it on a rack that is securely bolted down or securely weighted down with a lot of weight plates, or you're going to be in for a bad time. So I've loaded 70 pounds on here, 235-pound plates. One thing that you're going to want to pay particular attention to if you get this is these weight horns are coated in plastic. They're not metal, so they're very slick. And these plates will definitely work their way out towards the end as you're using it. So you're going to want to make sure that you use collars to hold them on. RitFit sent me these little spring collars. They work great. They just need to keep them from scooting out. They don't need to be the best collars in the world, but you do need something to keep that from sliding out to the end as you're using it. The reason I loaded 70 pounds on here is this amount of weight is what it takes for me to start to tip that side of the rack up. Now the rack's not going to tip over 70 pounds. When you get to 90 pounds or more, like I said, you're definitely going to want to put, what I've had to do is put a bunch of weight on the weight horns on that side and then a bunch of weight on the weight horns for the cable system on that side to keep it from coming up. So like I said, if you're going to lift heavy on this, your best bet's probably to bolt your rack down. If you're going to lift heavy on it and you can't bolt your rack down, you're going to want to really make sure that that side of the rack is secure. Hack squats don't take a lot of weight to be effective. So if you're not lifting a ton of weight, or you decide to just do high rep type stuff, then you don't have to worry about it. But that's gonna be the biggest concern of mine, aside from the setup, is just the fact that this weight is sitting so far off the side of this rack. Now, if you have a different 2x2 rack where you can stick this on the front of the rack and all of your weights are on the back, You're gonna know better than I will of how stable your rack is, but rack stability is gonna be an important part of whether or not you can use this. To finish off the video, let's take a look at how easily it comes off the rack, because it actually comes off a lot easier than it goes on, because you don't actually have to line up any holes. All you're gonna do is you're gonna pull this pin out, lower the arm, and you can slide that pin right back in. Come back around, pull both cotter pins out, and then these little posts slide out very easily. Bottom one comes out, support the weight, pop it off, and then store it wherever you're gonna store it. This probably weighs 30 pounds or so, I would guess, maybe a little bit more than that. So it's cumbersome, but it's not terrible. And there you have it, the RitFit lever arm hack squat. If you've got a 2x2 rack with 1-inch holes and 4-inch spacing, you can probably put this on your rack. So if you've been looking for an inexpensive way to do hack squats, this might be the solution for you. Like I said, just pay attention to, are you the type of person who's gonna wanna put it on and off every time you use it? And then B, do you have a rack that's stable enough to support the weight that's that far off to the side? If you've got those two things covered, this might work for you. Head on over to the RitFit site. I'll put a link below. I also have a code that I'll put down there that gets you a little bit of money off. And that's all I've got for this video. What do you guys think? Is it something new? I've had a few people ask me to actually review it. They spotted it in the background of videos. So what do you guys think? Is this something that you think would be cool? Is there things you think maybe RitFit should change? Is this something that you'd actually use? Or would you rather just do the hack squats in a different way? Let me know in the comments below. And until the next video, I'm Tim with GymCrafter.